Hey everybody, it's Matt Johnson. We are back with another edition of the Elite Real Estate Systems Hangout. We've got a really good one for you today. We're going to talk all about lead generation, culture, talent, and expansion. We've got a special guest with us, but let's first bring in the man, the myth, the soon-to-be legend, Jeff Cohn. Jeff, what's up
Hey
today?
guys, I'm super excited today. I have a great friend of mine that came on the show. We're going to be talking a lot about team building, and don't miss out. We're going to have about 45 minutes of straight, direct, hardcore content. You don't want to miss it.
That's right. All right, so let's welcome to the show Tim Heyl. Tim, what's up today?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it and excited to be on today.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. So, for anybody that's been hiding under a rock and doesn't know who you are, just give us the 60-second catch-up version on who you are, where you are, what types of clients you serve.
All right. So my name is Tim Heyl. I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams in Austin, Texas. Born and raised here. When I graduated from college, I started selling houses right away. It was in late 2009, so at the bottom of the market, I got to kind of ride it up. So as I learned and grew and kind of grew my skill set, the market started to get better as well. So fortunate timing, fortunate place, had a lot of great mentors, and just started to grow my real estate business from a individual selling houses on a regular basis to a real estate team that now last year we did about 115 million, and we're now in Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, and Austin this year. So on track to do probably about 40% growth from last year and be in 4 cities this year.
Nice, that's awesome. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So this is kind of a team building mastermind. So we're going to go through just the culture, leads, accountability processes, systems, and strategies. Just the same approach that Jeff has used to build out his team. And we're going to go into that in depth with you and find out how you apply those same principles, and then compare and contrast a couple of the two different approaches so people can see that there are other options for how to build a team. There are other strategies out there, and just see kind of what's working for you and compare it to what's working for Jeff.
Sounds great. I love it.
That's right. So let's start with the lead gen component of it. Obviously, you're the CEO of Phone Animal as well. You founded that company that helps people generate leads and makes a ton of calls. So kind of fill us in a little bit on how the whole ISA team, which is really what you're known for in the real estate community, how does that fit into your actual real estate teams there in Texas? How does that fit into your lead gen structure?
Yeah, great question. So, it's funny, Jeff, you and I both, we started at a similar time, and we've both grown our businesses in very different ways, and yet every single year we seem to be not only thinking things the same way and thinking about our future the same way, but also seem to be at same production levels and everything. So I'm interested right now just to hear, on anything that I talk about. I'm just interested to see what the latest is that you guys are doing as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, when it comes to lead generation, I didn't have any money when I got into business. I was completely broke, living in my parents' basement. So I had pretty much no choice but to prospect. As you grow, as you start in the business, and you have your 2 resources, time and money, and so I had a lot of time and no money. And then as I started growing my business, it kind of got in the middle here, and then it eventually got like this, where I had a lot of money and no time because I was closing deals. I had a ton of listings out there, and my time was completely taken up. I was lead generating for 4 hours a day and going on appointments for 5 or 6 hours a day, and trying to build and run the team in between, but failing miserably at it. So I had to give up either lead gen or listings out in the field so that I could gain that time back to focus on building the business. And so, that's where you all of a sudden sacrifice money for time. And so I had the option: do I buy leads? Do I go to marketing? Do I go to mass media advertising? What do I do? And so I've always had a coach since I started in the business, and one of the things that my coach told me at the time was focus on your core competency rather than trying to go and learn learning a new lead generation method is like learning a new industry, right? Trying to get out there and figure out how to effectively succeed in radio is like, I mean, you might as well at some point go and start an insurance company, right? I mean, I have spent 3.5 years learning prospecting, understanding the numbers behind it, what it takes to get an appointment, how many appointments it takes to get a client. I figured that out, and I had worked on expireds and FSBOs and all that. So the natural thing was to spend my money on growing what I already knew. So that was where hiring that ISA panned out. So I hired one ISA, and then a second one, and then a third one, and it eventually turned into a group of 4 or 5 people that would come in every day and do what I did for 4 hours a day. They would do it for 8 hours. And so I learned that I was working all the low-hanging fruit, so my results in 4 hours were awesome. They were incredible compared to what 4 ISAs will each do in a full day over time, because there's only so much low-hanging fruit. So they would hit all the low-hanging fruit up at the beginning of the day, and then spend the rest of the day circle prospecting, making just listed, just sold calls, and looking for qualified sellers. And it worked out really well. In fact, it worked out so well that we ended up kind of spinning it off. We had a couple of people who were looking for more opportunity, and so we spun that call center off into a whole business. That was kind of the evolution of Phone Animal. And to start for Phone Animal, my real estate team was the only client, right? We were the only client of Phone Animals until that business began to grow so fast, such that Phone Animal called us up and basically said, "You're fired. We need to we need our resources to continue to grow." So my real estate team, who's now run by Matt, our expansion director, he had a challenge that he had to figure out: is how do we pay Phone Animal? Do we bring this back internally? And so at first he said, "Fine, Phone Animal, we'll write you the full check. We'll stop doing the TIM deal." And so that was kind of the way it happened at first, until Matt realized that he had a problem. He had a talent problem. What had happened is completely separate than lead gen. We were sitting over here looking at our real estate team, our listing specialist, who accounted for 50% of our closings, maybe a couple hundred deals, got burned out, and she wanted to move on and do something else.
Wow.
She works in one of my other businesses now. She wanted more of an 8-to-5 job, and her talent, she's unbelievably talented, was literally just cranking out listings right and left, but she was ready to move on from something else besides being a real estate agent. And so that left us we replaced her with a brand new agent that we went out and recruited that didn't know what the hell they were doing, right? So we're a little bit screwed. And then a couple months later, our top producer, we ended up having to part ways with him, because there was an attitude problem in the way that he was treating employees and team members and also clients. So we had to part ways. So we lost in just a couple of months' time. We replaced 2 people who accounted for a couple hundred deals with 2 brand new people who accounted for like 0 deals a month each. Right? And so Matt looked up and decided he had to solve the talent problem, and he had to treat recruiting like he treats sales. And he had to start, we don't treat recruiting like we treat sales. We treat recruiting like when we need a position, we post some job ads and hope that we get some good resumes and have some interviews and put somebody into a job. And the way we treat sales is we go out and spend $1,500 a month on a CRM to manage all the leads, and then we spend another couple thousand a month on getting people to come to our website and to register, and then we have this whole sales force that works on converting them, taking them from a funnel from people who register all the way down to a closed deal. We have this whole force behind, this whole sales force behind how we treat sales, and then recruiting, we just kind of post an ad and take some resumes. And that clearly was affecting our ability to grow in our business. So here we were kind of doing this because of that. So Matt made a decision to knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. And so what he did was, rather than rebuilding the ISA department, what he did is he said, we're going to have junior associates, and then we're going to have agents, and then we'll have team leaders, and then we'll have expansion partners. And so there's kind of 4 tiers for how you enter our organization now. And so when he brings on junior associates, they operate just like an OSA or an ISA, where they come in and for 10 hours a day, they're on the phones. They're calling neighborhoods, expireds, FSBOs, old leads, archive leads that we have. They're basically finding qualified seller opportunities that want to do business and putting them in the system. And we pay them to do it. So the junior associate program for us looks on the outside like the ISA role looked, but the difference is it's really, we call it a paid training role. So they're going through what we used to have as the agent's first 100-day plan. We actually have it as a 6-month. We broke it out in 6 months. And so while they're coming in, calling, and getting paid to do it every day, they're also going through this paid training plan where they're having to test out of every single skill and contract and everything of being an agent, because the next step for them is being an agent on the team. It's not a separate call center over here. It's actually the bottom tier for becoming the agent at the next level. And so that's worked really well, because now if we need more leads, if our team feels like we need more leads, that means that we need to go recruit somebody who can come in and generate those leads for the team, and we'll pay them to do it. And then what happens is that also solves our issue of having agents who know what they're doing in our organization, because every 6 months you have another, these junior agents are in there.
Trained.
Yeah, they're in there for 6 months. They're fully trained, and they bump right up. So it's worked out. It's worked out really, really well for us. It's solved the talent funnel and the lead funnel all in the same thing. So Matt, who runs our real estate team, that's his sole focus. When he wakes up in the morning, he's looking for those future empire builders that are willing to start at the janitor level, and that's his sole focus. And by having the #1 person in our company focus there, we're solving leads and talent with the same strategy. So it's worked out really, really well for us.
Yep. Tim, I think that's awesome. I want to address that a little bit. I went to ESO last fall down in Austin with Gary Keller and learned a ton there about expansion. And one of the things I like, the expansion is somewhat of a buzzword right now, and you've obviously adopted it, and you're one of the pioneers in the industry with expansion. As you know, I've also expanded into several different markets. What Gary Keller said that I think rings true for all of our listeners today, I want them, if they take anything away, take this, and this is what Tim just talked for 10 minutes about, which is creating a leverageable lead generation system. Any company that wants to expand, even if you're just expanding within your own office, within your city or across the country, you have to be able to create a leverageable lead generation system. And that's what Tim's done. And what's interesting is Tim, opened this up. He and I have done it very differently, but in a lot of ways we've done it the same. And that's where a lot of teams across the country hire someone specifically to scrub. Tim is having his own agents, or through their training process, learn to scrub the leads that he has generated. He's also teaching them how to hunt on their own and create their own lead opportunities, work their own sphere of influence, because Tim's sphere wasn't big enough. And obviously, Tim, I'd be curious, because I know my sphere dried up. You helped talk me into quitting servicing the clients and work on building the team. You remember that a couple years ago, which has been amazing. I quit in 2013 working the clients direct. But I thought all this sphere business, I did 80 deals my last year in 2013. I thought all that business would stick around and I'd be able to turn a lot of those leads over, and my sphere is pretty much dried up. I might get 1 or 2 leads a month that I kick off to my team. Have you found that you had that same experience as you started focusing on helping your agents build their sphere?
Well, yeah, the challenge is sphere business is the best business to have. And if you as an individual agent continue to work your own deals and continue to work your own sphere, you will always have sphere business coming to you. But that's not a business, that's a job, right? So I think what you and I decided is that even though sphere deals are the best deals to work, sphere clients are the best clients to work, and they'll always keep coming back to us if we keep personally serving them and servicing them and doing a good job for them. At the end of the day, neither you or I really wanted a job. We wanted to be able to have a business where our job could be different month by month or day by day. We could insert ourselves wherever we really enjoyed being, but not be nailed down to a serious job. And that's kind of one of the fun parts about building a business. And
right.
So, I mean, where we've struggled. So last year we still did 130 deals from somebody's sphere on the team, right? So whether it was mine or somebody else's, we still, just by sheer volume, when we're doing the number of units, Jeff, you guys do a lot more units than we do. So when you're doing that number of units, by sheer volume, people are going to come back, and you're going to do repeat and referral business. The challenge is, you and I, what we've done is, so that we can leverage ourselves out of it, we focused on new business and helping the agents build their spheres rather than cultivating our spheres. And that's a kind of a sacrifice that both you and I have made in order to kind of do what we've done. I'm now in the process this year, I've hired somebody who it's their singular objective to figure out how to capture what I call orphan business. And that's orphan business really just represents anybody who's a sphere or past client of a non-producing person on the team. So like all my past clients, all my sphere, Matt's past clients, Matt's sphere, past clients of agents that don't work here anymore, things like that. We call that orphan business. And so I've hired somebody, I said, it's your singular job to figure out how to capture that orphan business and bring it back in. And they're not an agent, they're not a producer, they're just, I've brought them back in to basically be a membership director. And it's something that we haven't mastered or anything, but I know it's a gap, it's a gaping hole because of where we've chosen to focus.
Sure. Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, a big focus for us and what we teach at our workshop is that agents should focus in 3 areas. 1 is their sphere of influence, which we believe is the best source for leads. 2 is their own prospecting efforts outside of their sphere, which would be an open house, mastermind group, outbound calls. And then 3 would be converting the leads that we generate. And a majority of the leads that we create are from Google AdWords, but just call those internet leads. And when an agent's working those 3 different buckets, we find that they have the healthiest business. 70% of our deals last year, we did 580 units, and 70% 70% was sphere of influence, which was both prospecting and sphere buckets, and then about a third of it was leads that we had generated to our team. One of the things I want to address, though, a lot of people listening look at us and they feel like we are so far away from where they are. And I remember, Tim, when we were talking in San Diego a couple of years ago, and you're like, dude, you just got to quit servicing the clients. The worry is I'm making $300,000 plus a year off of servicing the client. So if I fire myself, how am I going to make up that $300,000? And so I took the risk in 2014 and threw my hands up and said, fine, everyone's telling me to do it. Let's see what happens. Now, of course, had I just gone and golfed all of that time or gone to the lake or done whatever, I wasn't going to get $300,000 back. But my belief system was if I became the Matt that you have now on your team, I recruited, I tried to generate more leads, I fine-tuned the process, the system, etc. I believed I could make more than 300, and I did the experiment. And in 2014, I about made the same amount of money, about 500,000, that I had made the year previous, being the team leader and being an agent servicing. And I thought, wow, if I can break even, make the same I made the year before, not working with a client, life can't get any better than that. And so now the next year, last year in 2015, I made almost $1 million and didn't sell a house.
Yeah.
So I know you have a very similar story. Why don't you share that with us real quick?
We have almost the exact same story. When I got out of production, I remember I think it was 2013 where I did personally accounted for like, I don't know, 180 deals or something like. I don't know what the number was, but it was a lot, and they were all listings, right? So I was a highly leveraged. I had ISAs doing the calling, and I had admin doing the transactions, and I was just going on the listings. But I accounted personally for a lot of deals, and I made good money, like you said. I think I made $650,000. It was like $250,000 more than I'd ever made in my life, right? It was the most amount of money I'd ever made. And I hired somebody to take over every deal, and I stepped out, and I committed to never doing another listing again. And it wasn't. It can be scary if you let your personal expenses get so high that you need that money, right? That's when it can get scary. For me, I was keeping most of the money in the business, and I was living on a portion of what I was making. So for me, I thought, well, if I go from 650 down to 350, let's say, or 400 or whatever, in worst case scenario, if I went down even to 300, I would still be okay because I'm not needing to spend $600,000 a year, right? So there's a lot of agents out there that make a ton of money, and so if you could cut that in half and still be okay, it's about bringing back your quality of life. The reality is, you can bring in a listing specialist or somebody to replace you for $100,000, 120 grand. I mean, the numbers that you and I are talking about, it doesn't actually require that. So, if somebody can come in for $100,000 and take that job over, and you're making, even if you're making $200,000 a year, and you could have somebody take your entire job away for $100,000, and you would go down from 200 to 100, that would be worth it because now you just gained back 50 hours.
Right. I think you nailed it. You nailed it, Tim. And I don't think people talk about this enough. The reason you could do it and go down to the $100,000 and not have to service another client is because you were living a lifestyle that only necessitated $100,000 or $200,000 or whatever it was, maybe a third of your net income. And I'll attest that when I visited you for the first time, you lived the same way I did. We both come from the Midwestern values. You're from the South. I'm in the Midwest. And neither of us lived too crazy. Our cars were pretty modest, and I say modest, probably value of $30,000. Our houses both were modest. In my area, when I visited you the first time, I lived in a $140,000 split entry in Omaha. That's very modest, and I did that while I was making $500,000 a year.
Right. I mean,
say that again.
I said, and I lived in an apartment of
yes.
all, right. So I
visited your apartment, and so I know at this time. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I visited there, and it was a nice apartment, but it was an apartment. So the thing is we both made the choice to put ourselves in a position where we weren't going to be super nervous that we couldn't make the payment the next month. We both live very frugally, and we put ourselves in a position. I know you just recently built a house. I recently built a house. I'm now driving a nicer car than $30,000, but I was able to exit the business, work on my business, and focus on the things that mattered most in the creation of Omaha's elite real estate group, and now all these other ventures. You've done the very exact same thing. Well, so let's get in.
I was just going to make one more comment on that, Jeff, and it's you and I both started out doing all the prospecting ourselves, right? We put in the work to get the reward, and we were willing to have delayed gratification, not instant gratification. But that happens when you do the lead gen, but it also happens later where you're making the money now. You could spend it and have instant gratification, or you could delay it another couple years and reinvest it and re-put it in, and that's what you're talking about. It's all about being willing to have a delayed gratification versus instant gratification.
Right. Well, I love how you said, you could make 200 a year if you're servicing or 100 a year if you're not. I've had multiple visitors, over 100 visitors to our team building workshop in the last 12 months, and some are really close friends of mine that one of them makes over $2 million a year net, but works 60 to 80 hours a week. And I said to them, and I'll say this to the entire audience, would you rather make half of what you made last year and not have to service another client the rest of your life? And when I showed him and others that have come to the workshop a way that they could be able to do that by essentially exiting the business or becoming the CEO or whatever you want to call it, they've done it. A lot of people have taken that advice and said, wow, why am I in this rat race? And a lot of people, I think, are in it because their living expenses are matching their income. And so what I would submit to anyone listening to this, keep living off of what you earn today, but every year as you increase your revenue, 20%, 50%, whatever it is, don't live off of that additional revenue. Have that saved away somewhere so one day you could take the same risk that Tim and I have taken, exit the business of servicing, and build a team around you that can service it for you. And I always tell people, the day you quit being an agent that services clients is the day that your team makes enough money to cover your net. So essentially, if you need 200 a year to live off of, once your team's making you 200 a year, that's when you fire yourself. It's hard because you're also making 200 a year, but then you have to believe that if you put your time into generating leads, teaching people to convert those leads, and recruiting talent, like you pointed out earlier, you're going to make more than 200. So I think these are some great points. So let's get into culture a little bit, Tim. What have you done in your market in Austin, as well as all of your expansion teams, to keep your culture consistent? And for someone listening that hasn't really built a huge team yet, maybe they're just a couple people, what are some things they can do to like set the tone to breed success on their team?
So Gary Keller, I heard him say this. I think he said it perfectly. He said, culture. How do you build culture? What is culture? And Gary said it so simply. He said, culture is just your standards. That's it. He says whatever standards you decide that you're going to have and be about and commit to, that's going to dictate the culture of your company going forward. And looking back, a lot of this wasn't intentional, but I had done things a certain way. I was unwilling to do them a different way. I knew what worked well, what succeeded. So when I brought people in, they were doing it the same way. And so all of a sudden that bred a certain type of person I brought in people who wouldn't abide by that, and then they were gone. So what happened is all of a sudden like-minded people started being attracted to the role. Like-minded people started being attracted to the company. And eventually we woke up and got purposeful about it and created our core values by looking back and going, what is it that all the people who have succeeded have shared? What is that? So for us, it's an acronym. It's STRETCH. And STRETCH stands for getting outside your comfort zone, growing, right? Mm-hmm. And STRETCH stands for, self-accountable, tenacious, resilience, energetic, let's see, the T, team player, creative, and humble. Those are our core values, and those weren't some random core values that we just kind of threw together. That was actually myself and Matt and a couple other guys coming together and going, what is it about? There's a secret sauce here, because every single one of our agents makes over $100,000 a year if they've been with us for longer than 6 months. So what is it that people who make it to the 6-month mark and everybody else who's come into our organization, what's the difference? And we sat together and we combined and we came up with those things. So, but STRETCH, those are now standards in our company. So when we're going to hire or promote or even fire, we're doing it based off of those keywords, and those are a standard in our company. You either operate as a person that has those core values, or you don't. And
within each of those acronyms or letters, is there an expectation that you can actually, a tangible, actionable, that you can hold someone accountable to? So you talk about stretching. Is there a call goal? Is there a weekly attendance goal? Anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's additional standards in our company. We have what we call the blueprint, and the blueprint, there's a couple of things on there. 150 new, 3 means no, so there's a couple of different little things that we have that only mean something to us. For example, 150 new means 150 minutes of dial time on the dialer calling somebody you haven't talked to before. So not doing lead follow-up, not talking to your clients, but 150 new minutes. If you consistently do that, think about it, that's 2.5 hours on the dialer every day. So one of our blueprint items is 150 new. Everybody who does that every day succeeds with our company. People who are spotty with it or people who don't do it don't succeed with our company, right? Yep. So we sat back and we've identified these different things, and what we've done is everybody in their first 90 days as an agent, their requirements. After their first 90 days, what happens is if they're hitting their deal goal, if they're hitting their client's taken goal, then we don't look at any of those numbers. Autonomy comes with results, with performance.
Right.
People who aren't hitting those goals show up on the report every single day, and they're being monitored and held accountable and the whole thing. We breed competition. Everything in our organization is about competition, right? So you've got leaderboards and awards.
You have a Gecko board. Tim's the one that introduced the Gecko board concept to us, which
Yep.
we've loved. We've been using that. For anyone listening, go out to dashboard1 or dashboard2.omahaselite.com. Check out our board.
Nice. That's awesome. I'm going to have to check that out. Jeff, I got a question for you, and I know that this isn't what we're supposed to do here, but I'm actually interested in coming up to
Squirrel.
No, I'm interested in coming up to your conference. We've talked about me getting up to Omaha. I'm just curious, what does this look like? Is it a day? Is it a
So
Tuesday?
this was my thing, Tim. Like right when I met you for the first time in San Diego, and that was through the GetViral.com Viral Marketing's Mastermind, which I'm still a part of, and I've loved using viral marketing. Just to give Frank a little plug there. He can take me to dinner later.
I love it.
So,
Yeah, we'll go
one
back.
of the biggest things was I wanted to learn what all the top agents were doing across the country. And I spent time with you, Tim. I spent some time with Ben Kinney down in Charleston at one of the Boomtown retreats. I started going out and finding Amanda Howard and Travis Howard were a great contact. Tons of people, probably 30 or 40 different teams. And we took all this knowledge and applied it. And that's the thing is a lot of people are just in the business of obtaining knowledge and they don't really do anything with it, or they're just trying to be doers, but they're not going out and seeking new knowledge, and so they're not getting the types of results you and I have seen in such a short amount of time. But we put both of those things together. So we have all of these really exciting concepts and strategies that we have implemented that are proven that we want to share with the world. And you can get on a 1-hour podcast and give people little pieces, but at the workshop we give them the whole picture. I call it the big picture. And in 12 hours we take them through A to Z of exactly what my team did to get the results that we got. And a lot of people don't want to try to do that on their own. There's a lot of actionables involved to be able to build as quick as we build. And so this is where we identify talent for our expansion model. I had mentioned earlier, we have about 5 or 6 expansion teams. So people pay $3,000 to spend a 12-hour day with me, my success coach, my operations manager, my dialogue coach, and they get to see an entire team meeting, an accountability meeting, and we walk them through hour by hour of all the different actionables that we've done to grow from 80 deals a year in 2011 to last year doing 580. And I told you on the phone the other day, I sold 80 houses last month. So in 1 month, we're selling more than we did in a whole 12 months 4 years ago. And I know you're getting really similar results too in such a short amount of time. And people think, oh my gosh, what's like this magic bullet essentially that they're shooting to get these types of results? And it's honestly just expanding, adding agents, teaching them how to convert, teaching them how to generate leads, the same stuff that you're doing. And it's showing them contextually what to do, because so many people in podcasts are really fluffy cat. I call it fluffy cats. It's just filler words. Yeah, you just got to work harder. Well, it's not just work harder. It's I partnered with lenders and vendors to cover our marketing costs, $12,000 a month. I'm with Boomtown as my platform. I spend $8,500 a month in Google AdWords. So we'll show exactly kind of the formula that we have implemented to get the results we've got.
Actually, I'm just thinking I can attest. So a couple years ago, you literally you got me on the vendor program, right? You got me to actually have the people that I'm making money for contribute back, right, in a legal manner. And I didn't think we could do it. I thought it was crazy. And then I came back and I told you my results, and you were like, dude, I just made you $150,000. You owe me some of that.
So I remember it was like in one sitting, I remember where we were. We were overlooking the baseball field in San Diego, and we were talking about it, and Tim's sitting there and like thinking about all these vendors that he's already giving all these leads to, and he wants to create marketing service agreements. And the next step is ownership. Once you're doing around 200 to 300 units a year, you then start owning the entities rather than going with MSAs. And I remember saying to Tim, I was like, dude, that's a Range Rover every year for the rest of your life. I just put a Range Rover in your garage. And it's like people hear this idea and they're like, what are you talking about? What is this? But it works, and you're not the only one. I'm glad it worked for you. It wasn't my idea. I had heard it from one of my visits I had gone on. So that was the idea behind this workshop, is we have a lot of exciting ideas like that if people would just plug in these ideas, they can get the same results we did. You and I aren't very smart. I think one of the things we've done that is smart is we've gone out and learned from the most, the most inspirational people in the industry. I mean, you're literally next door to Gary Keller.
Taking action.
And
right?
We took action. Yep.
So, all right. So getting back to having real content on a webinar like this one. I have a question for you that we could maybe debate. But this is like the biggest debate question that I think exists. And as you're building a real estate team, it's do I need more leads or do I need more realtors, right? Do I need more agents on my team, or do I need to go get more leads first?
Right.
which one is best. And you see like the Ben Kinney teams out there that have tons of agents, and the value with the Ben Kinney team is we're gonna teach you how to fish, right? We're gonna give you some leads, but it's not gonna all come from us. And then you have like what I used to be before, which was I only had like 3 or 4 agents. We were doing 250, 300 deals between like literally less than 5 agents, and everything came from what we generated on the team. Now I find myself somewhere in between that, but still leaning towards that way where we're lean on agents, and almost 90% of the business comes from what we generate. Where do you find yourself in that balance between?
I think we identified an answer to that question 4 years ago, and there were studies done. I think it was either from Bob Corcoran, which I was coached by Corcoran for about 3 or 4 months. It might have come from some of the team visits I've done. I don't know who to give credit to, but we found that the point of diminishing returns with lead generation from internet.
Give it to Frank. Frank.
It was Frank. It was Matt Johnson actually that told me this. So we figured out the point of diminishing returns with internet leads was around 30 leads a month. And so from early on, when I first launched Boomtown in September 2011, overnight we had 300 leads a month coming in. I had gone from maybe getting 1 to 2 leads a year off of my crappy website to getting 300 to 400 leads. And so it was, let's hire some agents. Who can we hire? How many do we need? How many leads should we be giving? And we found that sweet spot was about 30 leads per month per agent. And so just like how you hear people talk about lead with revenue, I always tell team leaders, lead with leads. Don't hire a new agent on unless you can give them around 30 leads, but you need to set the expectation that they need to convert 1 out of every 30 leads, so they need to be converting at 3%, and then they need to do 2 additional sales per month, 1 from their sphere, 1 from their own prospecting efforts. And it was exactly to your point. When a new agent comes on, we have them working our leads, but they can't just live off of ours. We want them to become better. And so we teach them and train them how to convert our leads, but the same conversion process, the 33 touch program or 10 days of pain, they're plugging their sphere leads into that same process. They're plugging their prospecting leads into the same process. So we hold them accountable not only to working the leads we give them a certain way, but also to working their own leads a certain way. And of course, they pay us a bigger referral fee if it's a lead I've generated to them than if they've created it on their own. But what I like about it is I always take a step back and ask myself, if I were an agent on Tim Heyl's team, what do I think would be fair? I don't think it would be fair to just have to work Tim's leads. I want to work my sphere, and I want your organization to help me work my sphere, and I want your organization to teach me how to generate leads on my own that you're not keeping 50% of, or whatever that split is. And so I believe that the teams that are going to last the different shifts that we're going to see in the next 10 years are going to be teams that don't live just off internet leads. They don't live just off sphere. They know how to go and hunt on their own, but they are healthy in all 3 of those areas. And depending on what market we're in, we put more of our spend or more of our time towards different leads, different types of leads.
Got it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, it really gets my head spinning because, again, our agent, 93% of our closed deals last year came from leads that our team generated, meaning internet leads, ISA prospecting leads, that type of thing. So,
wow, that's amazing.
Well, it is and it's not, right? It is, and yet if we took a different approach, we could probably double or triple the amount of agents that we had on our team, help them bring in additional business from their sphere or from open houses.
Well, let me ask you this. You're 150 minutes new, Tim. Why isn't there, let's say, 100 minutes new and 50 minutes sphere?
Right. That's a great question.
Do you think they're doing that on top of the 150 new?
Say that again?
Do you think they're doing that? Are they prospecting their sphere on top of the 150 new, the guys that are really successful, and then maybe the people that are less successful just let that kind of drop off and just focus on the 150 new?
Because just like I said before, I train people how to do it the way I did it, and not everything I do is great, right? So the way I did it was I completely disregarded my sphere and I went all in on prospecting for new business, and now all of a sudden I have this whole army that's all doing it the same way. So I've got a lot of opportunity in my business this year.
Tons.
Yeah.
Well, I just shared with you 70% of our business is coming from sphere, 30% off of the internet. So with those statistics, we can argue that
coming from sphere and if they call expire
and prospecting, right?
Yeah. But still, it's business that they're drumming up with your resources,
Right. So if I could pick, and everyone always asks this, and we can argue this all day too. I'd be curious what you think. People always ask what percentage of my business is listings and what percentage is buy side. 66% is buy side, 34% is listings, and it's been that way for 4 years. We generate a lot of buyer leads, which become sellers eventually, either in the first 12 months or 5 years later. But I think a healthy team would be 50% buyers, 50% listings, and then I like to see a third of the business internet leads, a third from the agent's prospecting efforts, and a third from Sphere. What would you say is the ideal setup?
So our business is our business actually is 55% listing, 45% buyer, and last year 30 it was like 30, 35, and 37 or something. But call it a third, a third, a third. A third was from outbound prospecting. A third was from repeat and referral business, mostly from my Sphere or past clients, right?
Okay.
And then a third was from inbound. We call it inbound leads. So that would be internet or sign calls.
You're the perfect, and we call internet leads. When I say internet leads, that includes our sign calls as well. It's leads from my team.
Yeah.
So dude, so you're kind of in agreement. I mean, you look at the results we're getting.
We're there. We're exactly there. We're basically 50-50, a third, and a third. My challenge is that only 7% of total closed deals comes from the agents bringing their Sphere to the
right.
table. So that's where our room for opportunity and improvement comes from.
Yep. Now, are you able to offset your lead gen cost with MSAs like Jeff has, or is it the hard cost of bringing people in and training them to sit down on the phone to generate the leads? Does that change your cost structure?
We've been able to offset with some co-marketing stuff. We've also been able to, I own a title company that we started, so we've been able to, like Jeff said, have some co-marketing stuff and eventually own some of our own businesses as well. So it's been helpful, and yet, it's funny. Co-marketing actually helps bring money to the table. Starting a new business from scratch doesn't actually help bring money to the table right away, or at least that hasn't been my experience. My experience has been more like as soon as you do start making money, you need to keep it in that business so you can keep growing that business. So it hadn't really been, the title company hasn't really been helping my real estate team financially. It's been more just helping itself to continue growing, whereas some co-marketing stuff with some other vendors has really helped.
Yeah, and it's a long-term play. I mean, Jeff, just like so as soon as you turned on the faucet of buyer leads, yes, it tilts your business, 66% to the buyers, but this is a long-term play. Those people are going to be in your Sphere, and you're literally, like you said it before, like Google AdWords could shut off right now. If all you did for the next 20 years was just keep in touch with the 60,000 freaking people in your database, you're set.
Yeah. Yep. And when you look at all of the sales we had last year, 580, and this year we're already at like 270, and we're recording now on what is today, May 10th. Our agents say that even though 70% of our deals were their Sphere and their prospecting efforts, a lot of those were leads that we had originally given them. So I don't know how you guys handle that, Tim, but after 12 months, that lead becomes their Sphere. So I would say over 80% of the deals my team's doing today at some point was a lead that I generated to our team.
So I'm not giving them enough credit then, because if they work a past client of their own, I still don't give them the credit for it because it was originally generated.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I'm not giving them enough credit.
No, you're not. Okay, that's interesting. So are you getting the same split every time they sell to a lead you had given them originally?
Yeah. But
do you guys have the same splits across the board independent of where the lead comes from?
Only difference is if they do bring something from their own Sphere or from an open house, meaning something that was never going to be here before otherwise, then it's a different deal. But if it's a past client that came from an internet lead or a prospecting lead, and they want to come back and do business again or something like that, that's we count that as team. But I think that's something that I'm open to changing, because I'm seeing that I'm not giving them enough credit for the fact that they are still staying engaged with those relationships and all that. Right. So, we're always changing, and I'm thinking through in my head right now. I think that's smart that you do that. Hey, I have another question for you. I'm sorry to
no, you're great.
Here, but
that's awesome.
Do you think, Jeff, that actually, let me ask you this: do you operate in other markets outside of Omaha currently?
Yeah, we're in Lincoln, Nebraska, Council Bluffs, Iowa, San Diego, California, Salt Lake City, Utah, and Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay, San Diego and Boston. So those are two bigger markets, right?
Yep.
How are you seeing your Google AdWord to forced registration search on your Boomtown site? How are you seeing those leads turning into deals compared to your smaller markets like Omaha and Lincoln? stuff like that.
Yep. So in Omaha and Lincoln and Council Bluffs, which are all in the Midwest, our clicks are about $1 a click. We're averaging $1 a click, and we're converting at 3%. In the expansion markets, we've only been in those markets for about 6 months, and that's when, on average, we start seeing internet leads convert. Right now, it's about 150 days when you look at my dashboard.
Stay in touch with me on it, because I'm really interested to know. You know, I'm not having the results that I want to see on pay-per-click, and I'm wondering if, you know, a city like Austin being a little bit more tech savvy, I'm wondering if there's a difference there. And I don't know. And
I think there will be. Yeah. So I think that there will be, but I think it's going to be offset by the sales price. So in Boston and in San Diego, they're both around 660,000. I think we'll convert 1%. We're generating a lot less leads. That we're paying $3, but the return on investment, I think it honestly is going to end up being about the same. But what we'll do is on the East Coast and West Coast, or in markets where people are savvy enough that they don't ever register, they don't want to be bugged, that's where you're going to have success with Phone Animal or a company like 1,000 Calls a Day, where you're just essentially teaching your agents or teaching others to make outbound calls. And you can be successful with internet leads, outbound calls, SEO, Sphere, anywhere. It's just a matter of figuring out what's going to work the best in each location. And that's what we're in the process of doing right now. Let me address Sphere real quick, Tim. You had mentioned, you know, a little bit of a dysfunction because of your leadership skills, because you were essentially just recreating or emulating and expanding on what had worked for you. That was the exact same case for me. I had just really focused on my Sphere. I personally have never really worked internet leads. Right when we generated all those leads, I just started turning them over to someone else. I didn't work them very often, but I did learn how to convert them. I wanted to go to the easiest deal, and that's Sphere. So one of the things that I had done early on that had helped me to be personally successful with my Sphere was I picked 100 people, and this is a Brian Buffini technique. I think he says pick 10. But you pick 100 people that you believe will buy, sell, or refer to you. Every year you can get referrals from them, and they'll personally choose to use you. Right. And you call them every 3 months, and you text them every 3 months. So every 45 days you send a text, the next 45 days you call, the next 45 days you send a text. And so I would recommend for you and anyone listening, if you want to cultivate and continue having great relationships with your sphere of influence, you call them and you text them. You read 7 Levels of Communication by Michael Mayer. It's all about communication, and it's not, hey, Tim, I'd love your referrals. It's giving value, giving them something. Every time you call, giving them information, telling them you care about them, checking in to see how their golf swing is, you know, whatever it might be. But you're being a friend, and it has to be a sincere friendship that you don't want them to think you're just calling, and you shouldn't just be calling to make money off of them. It should be to stay in touch with them. But you and I aren't doing that.
You're not going to do that with 2,000 or 5,000 people. You're going to do it with 50.
About 100 people. Yep. So when you join our team, you have to, before you can be a full-time agent, you have to give us 100 names, and we put them into archive. And then we have a long-term archive drip that's an archive contacted drip that goes out to anyone and everyone. It just says, hey, Tim, just touching base. Hope things are going well. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. So anyone that comes in off the internet that we contact, but they're not going to be buying or selling in 12 months or sooner, then we put them into archive contacted, and we also treat the sphere of influence the exact same way. And we tag all of Tim Heyl's sphere as Tim Heyl's sphere. Archive contacted drip gets activated, and so they're getting dripped. The agent's sending out a text message, and then we have most of our people that have ever bought or sold. The only mailer we do is TPMCO, the personal marketing company. So you pay $13 one time, and for 5 years they get a postcard every 3 months. But that's only for people that have bought with us because we have their address.
Love it. We do the same thing. You must have told me about it because I've been doing it for years.
You probably told me about it, Tim.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So
cool. Great questions.
Yeah, is there, in the last few minutes that we have left, anything that you guys want to talk about that's kind of coming down the pipe, any lead generation methods that you think you guys might want to dip your toe in and experiment with over the next couple years?
Tim?
Put that to Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just say that what I am experimenting with right now is, like I said, I hired somebody who, there's a problem in that my best people, I'm graduating out of production to step into leadership and expansion roles. And my worst people are leaving the team, right? And so, and I never really intend for anybody to stay as an agent in my organization for 10 years or anything like that. So we're always going to have, people are either going to be moving up or moving out, which means we've got this orphan group that I was talking about earlier. We'll always have these clients that closed a deal with us that had a good experience that don't have an agent to stay in touch with them on a regular basis. So in addition to doing everything that Jeff's been talking about, which we are going to go back and implement. I've got some great ideas rolling through my head right now, so thank you for that. In addition to that, I've gone and hired somebody who I've given them the task of figuring out how to keep that relationship with our company with all those people. And I think Jeff nailed it earlier, is you have to come from a value. the relationship is always the best, right? So if it's a one-on-one relationship, that's the best. But even whether it's a relationship or not, if you're not coming from value, there's nothing to stay engaged about. And so this person has to first figure out, how can we come from value? So if you think about it, they trusted you with their biggest asset, right? They trusted you with the biggest purchase of their life to buy that home. That means they trust you with some other things, right? So who better to help them know when it's time to fight their taxes, if they should be fighting them, if they should let it go, how much money they should be saving on it. Who better to tell them, if they should be refinancing, or if they did refinance based on interest rate changes, where they would be at. Little things like that, right? Those are all little basic pieces of value that we all already know about. So the question now is, what other pieces of value exist out there that we could go and take and actually stay in touch with them on a regular basis for? So we'll see how it goes. But the lead generation method for me is keeping the back door closed. We already do such a great job of creating new business and bringing it in. Now we've got to keep that back door closed.
Love it. And I'll tackle that question quick, Matt, as well. I think so often everybody's looking for the next thing. Where's it at? I don't think that it's going to be anything new. I think we're getting back to the basics of calling the leads, following up, doing what we're supposed to do, doing the 150 minutes. I mean, that's incredible, Tim, that you get your agents to do 150 minutes new. I'm happy to see my agents make 200 outbound calls and average about 20 to 25 contacts a week. And, to get 150 minutes on the phone, you can't fail. Like, if you have one person say yes each day to an appointment, that's 5 appointments a week, 20 appointments a month. We found 2.6 appointments equals a sale. So you're going to sell 3-4 houses a month, and in Austin, that's $100,000 a year. So you can't fail if you're doing that.
Yep. I mean, it's literally bulletproof. It's just a matter of if you're willing to do it or not.
If you're making the calls, you'll be successful. If you're not, you're not. And we track all, from an accountability standpoint, every meeting an agent goes to, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday trainings and accountability meetings and team events. And we found, even with the rainmaker agents, the ones that are attending things and participating, even if it's just like a ribbon cutting event or a charity event, it's the people that are around in the office that are having success, and it's the ones that make excuses as to why they can't be in the office that aren't successful, and as you said, are exiting our organization. But so I think the conversation needs to be more surrounding conversion. Everyone wants to talk about leads. Who cares about leads? Leads don't matter in and of themselves. Right. What matters is our ability to convert those leads and what we're doing to convert. And I'd like to see more conversations from other top teams that actually track their numbers to know exactly what actionables are they implementing to convert at a high level. We see a 3% conversion ratio right now on internet leads. I don't see much higher than that across the industry. Do you know what your conversion ratio is right now on your internet leads?
1%. It's terrible.
And what are your actionables, real quick, if you want to run us through that?
What do you mean, what are actionables?
What's the expectation when you give an internet lead to one of your agents? Tell me, like, each of the things they have to do with that lead in the first couple of weeks.
So the lead is reached out to 4 times in the first 24 hours. It's reached out twice by an inbound ISA, and it's reached out twice by an agent on the team. So obviously, at any point, if they answer, everything stops, right? But as long as they're not answering, 4 attempts in the first 24 hours, 15 attempts in the next 21 days. That's all over the phone. There's also a mixture of automatic texts that are being sent out by virtual assistants and automatic emails that are being sent out through the system. We actually ensure that every single one of those calls are being made through call list reports that we have set up. So those calls are actually being made 100% of the time.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because a lot of people spend a lot of time in this category. How about once you get a hold of somebody and you've placed them in the appropriate category depending on how quick they're going to be buying, what kind of interaction are you having with that person that indicates 3 to 6 months or 6 months to a year?
So on the seller side, remember, so I've always been all about the seller side, right? And on the seller side, it's completely unnecessary to keep re-engaging with them until they're ready to roll. On the buy side, our problem is that we treated the buy side that same way. And I think what you're probably about to tell me is don't do that. Right. Yeah.
Well, so someone that says 3 to 6 months, we talk to them twice a month. If they indicate 6 months to a year, we talk to them once a month. But I would argue, to counter your point, just to get a little sassy on this hangout, I think sellers think they don't want to sell till this summer, but then they decide to list their house in the spring, and we don't want to miss out on that opportunity.
Sure. So you cut it in half or cut it in 2/3 or whatever, and we do that for sure. But it's not a constant. It's not a constant re-engagement. Whereas like on the buy side, you're saying you're hitting them every month because even though they say they're not buying they don't know.
They could buy. Right.
They don't know. They're lying. It's not even that they're lying. Buyers are literally, if a house comes that looks cool, they might buy a year or 2 before they intended to, and they didn't even know they were going to do that, right? They didn't even know they were capable of doing that. So I get it. That's one of the places where we could improve big time as well, is staying in touch. It's just challenging then because you have thousands and thousands of leads that now you got to call over and over and over and over and over again. And that's the value of 30 leads an agent per month and growing the agent.
Yep, and we also take the advice, and I don't know who told us this either. We'll give you credit, Tim, but of having 100 active people in your active category. Was that you?
Yep.
Yeah, so that has been incredible. So essentially what our team does is if you have 100 people that say they're going to be buying now or in 3 to 6 months or 6 months to a year, they go to all active, more than 100, we're taking those extras and putting them in archive, and Boomtown has an algorithm that they've essentially can determine who is hot or who's ready to do something based on their interaction. It's called the Boomtown Now Wall, which is great within the Boomtown CRM. And so our agents and our virtual assistants are looking at that Boomtown Now Wall. And then we've also created a bucket for any lead that hasn't been treated the way we expect our agents to treat it. Instead of taking the lead from Tim and giving it to John, and now Tim's pissed at John for getting all these extra leads that Tim didn't treat the way he should have, we're just putting it into an Omaha's Elite bucket, and anyone has access to that bucket at any time and can take a lead out if they get a hold of the decision maker.
It's exactly what we do. It's exactly what we do. I love that.
Cool, man. Well, let's real quick, we'll tell people how to learn more about what both of you guys do. So Tim, we'll start with you.
I mean, I guess the main thing is I've got a lot of cool things going on. One, teach the real estate machine. So a class like it's a full day class on every single system and process that we have. So reach out directly. Hit me up on Facebook or something if you want to have that class in your market. We can get that to your market center and get all that figured out. The other thing is Phone Animal. So we didn't really talk much about Phone Animal, and there's no need to. Go to the website. We've got it's a call center here. It's our inbound ISA program. We've got about 75 guys over there, and you can hire us, and we'll generate the leads for you.
Nice. And then Jeff, let's talk about the workshops and expansion.
Yeah, and I will mention real quick Phone Animal, because I run 1,000 calls a day, which is an outbound call center in the Philippines, essentially. I have heard a lot of really good things about Phone Animal. We've had some of your clients come to our Hangouts and have said how great of a job you guys do. So to give you a quick plug on that, you guys are doing a great job. Yep. Workshop-wise, we have at least one a month, sometimes 2 a month. I know we have got one coming up soon on May 23rd. You can get some discount pricing if you reach out to me in the next week about that. You can reach out to me on Facebook anytime. I usually respond same day, at least within 24 hours if you're interested. Go out to eliterealestatesystems.com to learn more about expansion, our workshops, all the other things that we have going on, and I think that pretty much covers it, Matt.
Yeah, and you can actually register directly for the workshop. So the one that's coming up on May 23rd, you can register right from that page. So it's eliterealestatesystems.com/workshops.
Awesome,
Tim. Cool. You were awesome today, man. Great questions back at me. I think we could go another 12 hours. I think the listeners would probably enjoy it. So let's definitely get you on here in the next couple of months. Again.
We'd love to do it, man. Enjoyed it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next time.